Today, I'm talking to Jonathan Spears of Scenic Sothebys International Realty in the panhandle of Florida, known by most of us as the 30A Corridor or Destin. It goes without saying that there aren't many agents selling over 100 million. And with the exception of Jonathan, there probably aren't any agents in their 20s selling over 100 million. Jonathan graduated from FSU at 19. He broke into real estate just as he graduated, really at the age of 18. In 2015, he was 23 years old and sold 48 million. The next year, he sold 70 million. The next year, 2017 at 25, he sold 117 million. In 2018, he sold 120 million. In 2019, at 27 years old, he sold 137 million. And this year, at 28 years old, his volume is still growing. Today, we talk about how he did 100 million by 25 years old and how to fast track for volume and growth. Thanks for listening to the Jere podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. This podcast was created for real estate agents across the country to come together, sharing ideas to take your, their, and our business to the next level. All right, everybody, it's the Jere podcast where top real estate agents tell how they do it. And today on the show is Jonathan Spears, who is with Scenic Sothebys International Realty of the Florida Panhandle, better known as 30A and or Destin. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Jere, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It is awesome to have you on the show. I'm going to give everybody a quick tidbit on who you are, even though those of you who aren't watching or listening live have heard the intro. Jonathan is not even 30 yet. He is doing over 100 million a year, and he has been in the business for 10 years. And I am so excited to talk to you about exactly how, that is literally, everyone, like the most successful real estate agent in the country. I don't know if anyone has achieved what you have at 28 years old.
Jere, stop it. You're making me blush.
Tell us, how did you get into business? Why? Did you always know you would be here? Give us your story.
So I got into the business at the age of 18, and I originally was just very entrepreneurial. I started college early. I was able to talk my way into taking the Florida College Placement Test at 14. Told the dean of my local community college I was homeschooled, and they allowed me to go in and test to see if I could get placed for classes, and ended up taking full-time classes between the ages of 14 and 15. So I basically fast-tracked college and completely circumvented high school to try to jumpstart my career. And it was pretty amazing. I was able to graduate with a bachelor's degree from Florida State University by the time I was 18, going on 19. So pretty early out, and pretty motivated to get into the world and get to work.
Well, we've had a few conversations before now, and I did take note that was like 19 years old is what your bio says, that you graduated from Florida State. And I'm going like, how did you do that? So that tells us just a little bit about your mindset. Like you don't let grass grow under your feet. At the age of 14, what motivated you, or what gave you the mind, like at 14 years old, why didn't you just go play? What gave you the drive to want to go and get your degree first instead?
So I really saw time as a commodity that, I felt like I could get a jump start on. And I looked around at very successful people, and they were twice, 3 times my age. Even in college, I remember, my first student project was with a 55-year-old single woman who was going back to get her college education. And we hit it off. We became friends. She used to call me Doogie Howser, and I had no idea who that was because Doogie was before my time. And literally, I mean, everybody would always say, "Hey, there's Doogie," and I'm like, I have no idea who this is. And this was like right when YouTube was coming out, so I was getting on YouTube trying to catch up on old episodes. So it was pretty fun.
Oh,
But
that's awesome. So did you from childhood, and then we'll get into real estate, but I think it's really good to get to know you and your mindset. So as a kid, you knew, like, I'm going to go out in this world and make something of myself. Is that kind of what your mindset was and what you were thinking?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was gung-ho. I was ready to go.
Now, when you went to college, did you know you were going to end up in real estate?
So that's a funny question. I grew up around real estate development. I live here in the Florida panhandle on the beautiful white sand beaches of Destin and the 30A corridor. And all along, I grew up here. I was born and raised here, born at the local hospital where, my daughter was born 2 years ago. So it's pretty amazing. So she's actually third generation for our area. And so, it's just exciting to watch and see things grow. And I was always completely intrigued by when people would take raw pieces of dirt and turn them into something special. And so that's where the entrepreneurial side of me started leaning towards real estate slowly but surely as I progressed through college.
So you get out of college, and I think it was at about 18 or 19. Like, was it before or as you were getting out of college or after that you basically hit the ground in a role in real estate?
So it's really interesting because I was in college back in 2008. I remember sitting in economics class when Lehman Brothers collapsed, and I had a little Palm Pilot, which was so awesome back then. I was like a late adopter of the iPhone. So I was on my Palm Pilot and I was looking up the news, and I read the news about Lehman Brothers, and I always wanted to have a trajectory towards finance. So I always believed, especially with the time I was allocating myself from getting my education early, that I'd go on to an Ivy League school and get an Ivy League education and head towards Wall Street. And so as I watched the markets change, I believe that education was one of the best for my future career path because I started to learn things about myself that I enjoyed that, wouldn't necessarily have been a great fit in terms of heading that direction.
So your first job in real estate, tell us a little bit about that and what it was. And that's going to lead us, everybody, into your real estate career and how you got where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started obviously in the Great Recession. So I got a real estate license at the age of 18. I was incentivized by my mom and dad. They told me that I could represent their house if I went and got a real estate license. And lo and behold, I wasn't experienced enough to represent their house. So I ended up collecting a referral fee because I achieved my license and placed it with a broker that was focused on foreclosures at the time. And so I ended up working as an assistant underneath this broker and really was able to traverse some very complicated scenarios that I think is problem solving at its best. So it challenged me.
Yeah. And you were helping so you were doing, even at that time at 18, you were coming in kind of an assistant role. You had your license.
Right.
And you were kind of along his side doing how many transactions a year at that age?
He was doing close to 200 transactions per year. And he had contracts with specific asset managers working on bank foreclosures. And, ultimately we were dealing with very complicated title issues, paperwork that agents today would never, ever, ever see. The ones that lived through that time frame remember. All of the disclosures and the wet signatures. Now we're so fortunate to have DocuSign, which makes our life so easy. But it really learned in a time frame that it's an uphill battle to do a deal, and the buyer profile was completely different than who we have today. And I was just really fortunate to have that complicated start because it paved the way for me to be able to traverse transactions and lead people through complications that come up with the luxury property that we handle now. So
you started that at about 18 years old. And I think you were working with that broker for 5 years or how many years?
Yeah. I worked for them for 5 years.
So that 5 years goes by where you were coming in fresh to the market. You learned, what was the transition through that 5 years? Because I think after that 5 years, your next step was Sothebys.
Yep, correct. Yeah. So, during those 5 years working foreclosure inventory, we started to get a handful of deals that were on the luxury end. And I remember I would specifically study our hot sheet and study our market on the high end. And, the area that brokerage was servicing was the low end or the middle entry point. And, I just wasn't as passionate about the product. I was always passionate about the people. I loved helping people, loved being able to connect them to the right property. But the actual inventory that I was representing, I couldn't care to go into the house. I mean, it was just not exciting and, ultimately not real fulfilling. So what I started to do is gravitate towards an education on the high end of the market. And I was able to specifically put those skills to use with a handful of luxury foreclosures that we ended up getting.
So what was the moment that you said, okay, no more of this, time to sign up at Sothebys International Realty, at Scenic Sothebys?
So I had completed, I think, $25 million in business as a buyer's agent for somebody else. And, during that time frame, the top agent in the market was doing about 50 million. So it was a pretty strong market share. And I saw that there was an opportunity to switch from a reactive approach in my business, which was answering the phones for somebody else and, really catering to their listings, to going after and proactively mapping the inventory that I was interested in and the inventory that I knew I could serve well, the inventory that I'd studied on, the inventory I could articulate, and ultimately what I was passionate about. So that's really what led me to Sothebys International Realty. And I consider them a benchmark for luxury real estate. And I was so thrilled when in 2014, Destin Luxury Real Estate here in our market ended up affiliating with Scenic Sotheby's and launching the brand.
So as they launched, what year did Sotheby's launch? Which I remember I met Chris and Blake at the time.
Yeah.
But that was a little bit before, I think you kind of came on after they launched. They actually launched, was it 12?
They launched in 2014, so I was a year. I was a year late to the party.
Okay.
But I remember distinctly, I was in my office, and they have a really keen eye for marketing, and it's one thing that's always drawn me to Blake and Chris. I saw the magazine publication Niche, which we still produce today. I was blown away by it. Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's just it's not only a publication about real estate, but it embodies the lifestyle of our market. And so I saw this beautiful publication sitting on my desk, and I'm just thinking to myself, what could I do with those tools? And what could I do? How could I serve my clients at a higher level with the progressive nature of marketing that these guys are putting out? And so there was an opportunity that I saw that allowed me to better serve my customers.
So first of all, the word passion keeps coming up. You found your passion. Well, first of all, you knew it was in real estate. You get into real estate, you find it's really, and you even said early on, you were inspired by, and I see developments. Everybody I haven't mentioned, you may have noticed the background's different. I'm on 30A right now.
Yeah. I love it.
In Rosemary. But it's very inspiring to see what these developers do everywhere, but especially down here, to see how you can transform a piece of land into this beautiful, exciting community. But you had a lot of passion for real estate, passion for development, and then you really start finding yourself drawn to luxury real estate. You're doing $24 million a year in 2013, 14. You see the Sotheby's marketing. Sotheby's is coming out of, from being Destin real estate. And you see these tools and you're like, okay, I'm at 24 million. The top producer's at 50. I'm smart. And this is where my passion is. This is where I'm going. So you come into Sotheby's knowing this is where your passion is, knowing these are the tools and foundation to get you where you want to be. 2014 was 16 years ago? Maybe 6 years ago.
6 years ago. Yeah, no.
That's all a number.
Don't age me that quick. Come on, Joe.
26 years ago, 25 million. 6 years later, you've got a team. And you're doing 100 million, and your team brings in another, I think, 50 or so million.
Yeah. No, it's pretty amazing, though, because I affiliated with Sotheby's in 2015 in January. So, right at the start of the year, it was a fresh palette, fresh. Yes, I've been with them 5 years. This will be my 6th year with the brand. And, it was amazing because I was able to double my business that year. So I did 24 million the year prior. I was 22, did 24 million. At 23, I came into Sothebys and I did 48 million. And then at 24, I did 70 million. And at 25, I did 120 million. So every year I was doubling my business, and I was leveraging the tools of the brand, getting more and more connected within the brand, and figuring out how to serve this luxury market in a way that it's never been served before.
Okay. You just said, I figured out how to serve the luxury market in a way that has never been served before.
Right.
What does that mean?
It means providing value. The old rules of soliciting for a listing, getting the listing and just throwing it on the MLS and hoping somebody brings you a buyer, they're dead. I mean, that's gone. Technology, the rise of $1 million listing, people seeing, almost a theatrical version of what we do, and really a young, fresh version of what we do. It really helped me as I was trying to grow my business. And so what I was able to do is go out and explain to people, hey, listen, I've got energy. I'm proactive. I'm so excited about your property. And truly I was honored to be there. And, it allowed me to connect people to Sothebys International Realty that had not tasted that level of marketing. And one thing that I really went after when I was starting out was, and still today, were, local home builders that pervade architecture that I was distinctly enamored with. And when I would see some of their inventory come out of the ground, I immediately knew that's who I want to be affiliated with, because they're building the best of the best. And that's what I saw myself representing and what I enjoyed, what I was passionate about. And so as I was trying to figure out, okay, what value do I bring to these guys who, they've been in this market for decades? Here's this young guy coming out swinging. What can I do differently for them? And that's where I saw opportunity, and that's where I executed.
Wow. Okay. So here's what I think. Well, first of all, let's reiterate what you just said, or what the repeat things are: passion, authenticity. Mm-hmm. You were passionate, you were authentically passionate, and you weren't afraid to communicate it. And you weren't afraid to see and harness value and deliver on it, especially from the marketing and technology and energy and what you can do. But here's what keeps coming to mind. Kevin Brown. Nikki Field.
I love Kevin.
Kevin says, you ask people what your secret superpower is, and they'll tell you one thing, but that's because they take it for granted that they speak 7 languages, for example. So you think your secret superpower is that you're passionate and you're authentic and you bring value, and not that you're wrong. But here's what your secret superpower is, or you are growing faster than we're talking record growth and record volume, especially in this market. I mean, in this market, I say this market because I'm in Florida now, but in our market, you're doing, a market where typically 50 million, 60 maybe is the highest. You're doing over 100 yourself. Mm-hmm. That's your secret superpower, is your ability to grow that fast and your ability to do that kind of volume at the same time.
Yeah.
So give us a little bit, if you can, and maybe you just don't know, how do you do that?
So I'll do my best to articulate it. Going back to my roots in real estate, I was oftentimes doing broker price opinions for banks, maybe 15 or 20 a day. And what that led to was 15 to 20 new listings a day. And if you can run the quick math on just 30 days of inventory like that, I mean, you're talking about processing a massive amount of transactions. And something that I really enjoyed about that was the ability to juggle and problem solve and ultimately multitask. And so what I took from that in terms of structure was an ability to multitask and really focus on different areas of the market geographically that allowed me to do the volume of business, considering that the average sales price in most of our area is right around $1 million. So like where you're at in the East End of 30A, it's a little bit higher, mid upper ones. But for the most part, the transaction volume you need to do to cross $100 million in business for just an individual agent is typically 100 transactions, especially if you're doing it consistently. So, I was able to model my business for growth and specifically geared it towards that growth. But one thing I found out along the way is that, you can't do it all by yourself. And, I started realizing that I was sacrificing time with my wife, time with my family, any type of social circle for my business. And I was okay with it at the time, up until the point that I found out we were pregnant with our first child, Ella. And it was a massive shock because, I was so used to doing what I wanted to do. And, my wife and I are very independent people and we travel. We absolutely love that. But, I was able to work. I had this massive freedom to work and very little personal responsibility. And so fast forward, and you know what this is like, having a beautiful child in your life. They deserve your attention more than any listing or any deal. That's who your world now revolves around. And so parlaying that into my business today, it was fundamental that I was able to problem solve on how to continue to grow while also scaling back on, working 15, 16, 17-hour days, which was the norm prior to having children.
So you talk about other people. But first of all, let's go back to just your growth and doing massive volume. I think some of it is most of us in real estate aren't in that environment first. Most of us and most of us aren't born with the ambition to go to college at 14. So, but that set aside, you're in an environment where it's like the new normal. Like for us, for me, doing 15 BPOs a day, like I do like a couple a week, and that's a lot.
Yeah.
When you're doing 15 a day, like it's the new normal. It's like, look, what's possible is what you decide is possible.
Absolutely.
You learn to do 15 a day and you do it. You're focusing on the things that produce the results and letting go of the rest. So
correct.
Yep,
absolutely.
I think for those of us who are from the more moderate, like not 15 BPOs a day world. So what is it really going to take? And don't limit yourself and make excuses not to do it.
Right.
What I'm hearing from, like, really, that's just it. It's simple. Like some of my most successful clients, and you told me this, especially the ones that came from nothing, I'll say, hey, like this is what, they'll get up at 3 a.m. and do 3 cartwheels if I tell them that's what they have to do to get a deal they need to get. Like,
right. Of course.
Just tell me what I have to do. That's what you did.
Yep.
Into the volume. I mean, so part of it is like, you just got to do it.
Yeah.
So something you elaborated on after that was, even though you needed to, you're doing 15 BP, there's all these things you do and you have this power that you have harnessed. At the end of the day, it's more than your power to harness.
Yeah. How is it sustainable? Right. So
I already know the answer to this question, but it's very relevant. So I'm just going to give it away as we transfer into your next point, is using other people. You talk about delegating. You talk about, you can't be successful alone, but you've also talked about, not in this interview yet, your greatest weakness.
Mm-hmm.
Your strength is probably passion and authenticity and drive.
Right.
Anything else to add to your passion before we go into your weakness?
I'm passionate about a lot of things, but I think, I think I'm very passionate about people, but my weakness is I want everything to be perfect. And if I can curate every little detail of absolutely everything in my life, I would do it in a heartbeat, but there's not enough minutes, hours, and seconds during the day to do that. And so what I realized is I had to give up certain areas of control in my business. And that didn't mean, just pushing it off on the people or, just letting go of what I enjoy doing, but rather finding somebody to come alongside me that is truly better at certain things so that I can focus on what my strengths are, which is selling real estate. I may not be great at organizing the back end of a system, that like we could sit around and talk about file organization and, what most C-level personalities are amazingly good at. I'm absolutely a high D and a high I. So that's the last thing I want to spend time on is back end system things. And so I was able to partner with somebody early on. This thing was late 2015. My executive assistant, Sarah Mallard, who is still with me today, she is the absolute glue to my business. And what that means is I'm able to interface with customers. I am, out there, working to drive more business, but she's on the back end, literally holding me up, like full support. And so it's just so amazing when you're able to click in that type of relationship. It's critical and pivotal to being able to continue forward. Otherwise, you find yourself caught up and things slip through the cracks. And so my job was to mitigate that loss by hiring people who have strengths that aren't necessarily mine.
So it sounds like Sarah, you mentioned, or I know you've got 3 other team members who are selling, and you've got 3 people on your team in support. You've got someone who's kind of in the field doing the showings, if something needs to be delivered, if somebody needs to be out delivering things, she's doing that. Right. You've got someone overseeing, managing, growing, motivating, training.
Yep.
And then you've got Sarah, who you just called your glue. I think everybody looks for that first person is Sarah, that they want and they're looking for, or even people that are at a high level, they've got to keep Sarah.
Yeah, Jere, it's funny you mentioned that. So like you said, the first thing that people look for, I've actually been talking to some incredible top producers who are close friends of mine in different markets. And they also have access to the Sothebys International Realty brand and are just superstars in their own right. But they have a very similar problem that I do. It's almost a disease of having to control everything. Yeah. And I think it's because we've poured our hearts into this business, and we give our hearts to our clients. I mean, we spend more time with our customers than our family, and they become family. So, we get into these advisor roles and we don't want to get out. And so sometimes you just have to get out of your own way. First step is hire a Sarah. Number one, to grow your business, you have to have somebody that can help you from an administrative side. And that allows you to do more tasks. The craziest thing I remember when I hired Sarah, and this is natural, this is what's going to happen. You find this void of time, like that time that you were in putting properties in the MLS yourself and like uploading photos and making sure that each picture is perfect. Like now somebody else is doing that. And you're like, oh my God, what do I do with my time now? Like, I was doing this before. And what I learned is lean into that proactive side and make sure you're picking up that phone and you're talking to more people. If you were calling 10 people a day, now you're calling 20. If you're calling 20, now you're calling 40. And that's how you grow. That's how you optimize your time to serve your customers at the highest level. And so what we've done is we parlayed that from just having an incredible Sarah who, there's nobody that could replace her on our team, to having, another support staff for Sarah. I've got Katie, who not only does she go out and work in the field, but she also handles the charitable side of our business. And that's something that, we decided as a team at the Spears Group that was very important, was to give back to our community. And, I love that I've got somebody that's, dedicated to looking for those opportunities. We're always out looking for opportunities for our clients. Who do we have that's advocating on behalf of our team for the community and making sure that we remain, a staple that cares? We're out here trying to catch dollars, but are we giving back? So, that's a portion of my team dynamic. And then, I've got 3 incredible agents that, work with different buyers. I don't want to call them buyers agents because they work with buyers and sellers. And, we support each other in all types of activities when we're transacting. But those guys are managed by Brian Fairweather, who recently joined our team back in January. And his job, if I think about my business, is 2 entities. It's Jonathan and what Jonathan's doing, and that's kind of the main well. And then you've got Spears Group that draws from that and not only adds to that culture, but grows alongside it. Brian's job is to, help support our agents and specifically be there for problem solving, which frees up my time to continue working specifically in my business. So it's a balancing act, but it's one that has to come together cohesively in order to grow and to really allow you to do the things that you love.
So I love how you went ahead and jumped and elaborated.
I'm sorry, I had to.
No, you're perfect. But I want to tap into, I don't know how much we said about your weakness being delegating.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was going to ask you that, but I'm just going to answer it for you. I mean, tell me if you have anything else to say or if I'm off on there. You changed your mind since we spoke earlier.
No, we literally just talked about, how to overcome your weakness, because truly my weakness is delegating. You can ask every single person on my team what drives me crazy, and it's giving up, something. And it's so tough.
So mine is too. Well, mine's the opposite. I will delegate. I'm like, I keep thinking about Kevin Brown in this interview, but Kevin delegates and then he just doesn't even talk to you anymore. He's like, oh, you got it. That's what I do. And then you've either got it or I'm micromanaging you. So how have you learned to delegate? How have you figured out when you know that they're doing it right and how to set them up for success and let them go? And when, no, this is actually the wrong person and how to get the right person?
Jere, I love what you said earlier is that, Kevin Brown will not only delegate, but once he delegates, he's got faith, right? Like that's such a great word to describe him. Yeah, he's got faith, and
he started as a priest, everybody, if you haven't listened yet.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, Kevin believes that the person he's delegating to can knock out the task at hand and he doesn't have to micromanage. I would say I'm the same way. I don't have the time to micromanage. So if I delegate, I have to know that task isn't going to fall flat on its face. Because at the end of the day, it certainly reflects on you when something in your business doesn't go perfectly.
Exactly. Yeah.
One thing I had to learn, Jere, was grace. Because we're not all going to do it perfectly. Things are going to fall through the cracks. We've got well over $100 million in listings. And let's just say we have a sign that's delivered to the wrong property. Am I going to ruin my whole day over it? Or do I trust my team to correct their mistake? I've had to learn the latter, right? I used to allow my day to get ruined because of it. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm calling the seller and apologizing profusely. But now it's no sweat off our back. If a small mistake happens, we not only correct it, but we learn from it. Yeah. And I think that's what makes us great. So I've had to learn to have high faith in those team members that I choose to surround myself with and who choose to surround me, with what they're doing, because they're also working, to sow into this business that has become a wellspring for everybody.
Exactly. So you and I love mindset, and everybody knows I love mindset stuff because I feel like that is the meat of success. But to get into some meat, I want to reiterate on the team as well, because I know that's what everybody's going to call and ask me and wish I had talked more about with you because this is good stuff. You've got the 3 agents. So first of all, they're not buyer's agents. I find that is a very common theme, especially in high-end luxury real estate. The agents on the team are a listing agent and buyer's agents the same way.
Yeah, they're partners.
Same for you, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
It's easier to have team members to help you with buyers. But you're still representing your clients the way your team members are. Is that kind of how it sounds like you're structured, but to make sure I'm not speaking for you too much? Yeah,
no, of course. So, I look at each member on my team as a partner who chooses to invest their time with us. And so, I treat them as such. They're an equal. And so my success is their success is my success. And whether they're representing a buyer or a seller, they're trained on both sides. I do have specific team members that are perfect to cater to specific buyer profiles or specific seller profiles. And so, we identify those opportunities when we come across that business. And we also plan for it. So if I know that I've got an incredible buyer coming in, one of my agents, Lita Broxson, is an absolute superstar. And literally, she's somebody that when I go shopping for my wife's anniversary gift, she's the first person I call. She knows everything about everything that my wife would love. And so I think about the way she services her client is the same way that I get excited to call her about an anniversary gift. I just know she's got that magic touch, and I'm so thankful to be aligned with her. So I know I can trust her with anybody. And, same for, I got my brother who he's 21. No, excuse me. He's 22. Sorry. He's going to kill me. He's 22. He'll be 23 this month. He just got married, and he's one of the top 25 agents in our market, which is unbelievable.
Wow. Yeah.
So I know that I'm surrounding myself with other Olympians. I mean, they're champions, and they're there to champion the success of our clients.
And there's a great sense of pride, I think, in everybody on your team and being a part of that. And that's who you are. And I think that's probably where a lot of that success continues to grow from.
Absolutely.
So team structure, I want to say this one more time with you to get it and make sure I'm sure we're already missing things. Please. But you've got Sarah. I'm assuming she's the one at the computer. She's the one who's scheduling. She's the one.
Yes.
Does she input the listings and do everything administrative?
She does everything administrative. So she's remote. She lives in Kansas City, Missouri. And most people would never, ever, ever know that. She is a true professional, and she's able to get up, self-starter. It's funny because I usually wake. So you and I kind of talked about our schedules a little bit. Yeah. I'm the type who I'm up working out in the gym by 7. She'd be up working out in the gym by 5. So she's up earlier than me, and then I work later than her. So we kind of overlap each other a little bit. And, we're always watching for emails, literally.
That's Bridget on my team. I get up I've been getting up at 4:30 until I came to Florida, but I usually get up at
He does that to you.
She gets up at 4. I'm like, I have 2 kids. She has 4, but yeah.
Correct. Yeah, they'll do that to you. See, I'm on my daughter's sleep schedule. She gets up at 7:30. So we try to get up.
School starts. She'll be getting up at 4.
Oh yeah, I'm enjoying it while I can.
So, she's your right hand, Sarah.
Right.
But literally, marketing and operations and inputting, that's her job. CRM, transactions, and I know you also have the Sothebys component that is a huge force in helping you implement.
Right, we've got an incredible marketing team.
And they probably work along her side.
Absolutely, yeah. So I've got Sarah. She is an overseer. So she's got her hand in a little bit of everything, and she's also empowered to delegate, right? So if she sees a task come in.
Good one.
Yeah. So she's absolutely empowered to reach out to Katie and say, hey, Katie, we've got an inspection tomorrow at, 146 Montgomery Street. Can you please be there? I need you to open the door at 9 a.m. and let the inspector in. She's overseeing things that, are task oriented, so she can delegate those tasks as needed, and I don't ever have to touch it.
So Katie, everybody, is the next person.
Mm-hmm.
Katie is what are their titles? So executive assistant would be.
Yeah, Sarah. Katie is like chief of operations. So she is boots on the ground. She's hands on, and she's able to interface in person. Sarah is.
Go ahead.
I was going to say Sarah is basically completely remote, so she's on the phone, on Zoom.
It actually, I think, helps productivity because she can not get up and get distracted. She's continuing to focus and stay organized. And then 100%. She kind of directs Katie. Now, does Katie take direction from agents on the team, or does Katie just take direction from you and Sarah for where
So Katie, I would say the managerial side works as almost a trifecta, and Brian is tasked with, overseeing the operations, and not only the operations of the team.
Don't lose your thought, but I want everybody to know who you're talking about. Yep. Sarah is behind the desk doing admin. Yes. Katie is in the field attending inspections, helping attend showings, be there, whatever.
Yes.
Photo shoot. Brian is the manager and motivator and coach and kind of a business developer on the agent end.
Correct.
So keep going. I just want to make sure everybody knew who these people are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for explaining that, Jere. So Brian is a pivotal role because not only does he oversee what our team's doing, and he's incredible because he's able to, just like you do, you're so amazing at this. You can coach, you can teach, and you can also help people implement. And so he's writing business plans for each of our agents. And at the same time, he's able to delegate tasks specifically between Sarah and Katie that may affect our other agents. So like, let's just say Lita's got a listing presentation she needs printed, prepared at the office. She's talking with Brian about, how do I approach this specific seller? They own in a very specific gated community. They've got a beautiful waterfront property. I want to make sure that, I've got my strategy down for when I go meet with them. How can I best serve them? So Brian's not only giving her those pointers, but he's reaching out to Katie saying, hey, Katie, we need to make sure that we overnight a listing presentation to this address today, by 5:00. And Katie's on it immediately. So
Brian's like a team manager almost.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yes. Okay. I call him my GM.
Now you said when you talked about Brian has got his work with you and then he's got his work with the group. So Tell us a little bit about what you meant by that.
So the work with the group is his primary role. And so Brian's job is multifaceted. He's pretty incredible. He's got a background with one of the top lobbyists in the country. He grew up in Tallahassee, Florida, and then has spent the last 4 or 5 years down in Palm Beach and Jupiter. And so he's had a lot of experience with growing brokerages. He worked for the agency for a little bit of time. And, I think he grew that office to about 80 agents, if I remember correctly. So his experience comes to us with a very multifaceted approach. So when I hired him, I told him, I said, Brian, you're going to be our lobbyist for Spears Group. You're getting out there, you're making sure that, our inventory stays in front of agents in other markets. His job is very diverse, and it's one that I've not seen in this industry outside of a managing broker. There's very few teams that do the amount of business that we're doing in this market relative to the market share, underneath a brokerage that operates like, a small brokerage. And so Brian's role is pretty incredible. And I think encouraging to other teams out there that see the value of remaining with a brand and the tools and the resources that they may provide while wanting to grow a team that dominates market share. So go ahead, Jere. I'm sorry.
No, don't let me interrupt you, but so Brian is like knowing Sothebys. Sothebys has great infrastructure, amazing tools.
Yes.
You can't get anywhere else. Amazing. There's just, you got a lot of resources at Sothebys. And Brian is the guy on your team that says, okay, I'm going to come in with you, Jonathan,
right,
and you, the team, and help make sure you guys are busy out in the field selling and working. Let's make sure we implement these tools cohesively as a team to maximize them to the fullest potential as a team and individually as agents.
Correct. Absolutely.
And your own, each of your own individual abilities and relationships you have with brokers. I think that is what a lot of team, like me, with my team, which we do great, and I love doing that job.
Yeah.
But I think that's what
you're amazing at it.
That's what a lot of team leaders or I call them team leaders, like people who have teams need and try to do, but you're doing that and you're selling, or that's your way of going, okay, I can kind of you're delegating that part of yourself to still be able to maximize and sell. Does that sum that up, what he does?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think what's really unique about that position is I've seen the best get drawn out of our team. The last 6 weeks we've dealt with, this global pandemic that I think's affected everybody's market. And it's been really amazing to see the time and the effort and the consistency that each member of our teams put in based on the business plans that we wrote pre-pandemic. So I think a lot of people, they were frozen in time. They felt like, what do I do? How do I have conversations? How do I navigate this time frame? And what was very fascinating about Brian's approach was the foundation of selling and assisting buyers and sellers has not changed. You exemplify empathy and you're empathetic towards somebody's situation and you help them navigate that scenario. And now more than ever, there's a heightened need for people to settle their lifestyle and find some type of consistency as opposed to the volatility that they've experienced with the unknown. And so it's been pretty fun to watch that all take place, because I think teams are always growing in an organic way. And for us,
well, he gives you the foundation to grow rather than react. Like our business and people who are drawn to real estate tend to be a little bit ADD, a little bit reactive, which makes us great when, crises happen where we can know what to do and react. But when there's a never before experienced crisis like COVID-19, if you don't have that foundation and that background and that person holding and managing and giving you that solid foundation to even be able to be of the presence to express empathy and have the resources to truly be valuable, which you said earlier in the interview. So we're talking about passion, authenticity, offering value, and y'all, I've got like 8 pages of notes here, and there was one
I love it.
I was going to add. It was so good too. But really, it's just pulling all that together with a team, delegating, even though that's your weakness. Yeah. You're doing pretty great. Maybe you don't know what your weakness is either. Maybe that's it.
No, I know that there's always work to do. And I think working on our culture specifically has been heightened for me. It's easy to get caught up in production, right? It's easy to be transactional, especially when you want to be the best, you want to do the most business. How do you solidify relationships? How do I talk to 100 people a day authentically and make them feel like they're the only person I'm talking to?
You talk to 100 people a day?
Some days. I've scaled back quite a bit.
How do you get 100 people on your list to talk to? I mean, like, who are these people?
Brian Fairweather actually challenged each of us to do that. And, it's funny, when he first asked that, I started counting my phone calls. So I get on my iPhone, I started scrolling through it. I'm like, okay, how many people did I really talk to today? And I realized I was making 75 to 80 calls a day, which, surprised me.
So have you gotten into, I'm actually using Contactually, but most agents at Sothebys use ActivePipe. Is it ActivePipe?
Yeah, it's ActivePipe.
So Close. That's the email system, Close.
Right.
So if you go into Close, I need to check. Close will tell you how many calls you make a day.
Yeah, so Ty Stockton, who I absolutely love and admire, he is a huge Close fan. So he's been trying to get me to adopt it. So I need to do that.
I'm still in Contactually, which he won't be happy with, but I'm in Close. I'm just registered and my cell phone number's registered so I can go look. And when COVID-19 hit, I didn't even realize how many calls I wasn't making 100. I was probably making 50 or 60. I think it was. And my calls dropped to like 2.
Wow.
Back up.
Yeah. It's like watching my Peloton chart when I'm cycling.
I'm not even giving you my name, except it is my name on Peloton. But
mine's Spears Group, if you want to come ride with me.
I'll come find you. I'll find you, except I might be way behind you.
It's all good. At least you're getting on the bike. That's all that matters.
I love it. Okay. So, final 3 questions.
Ask away.
Here we go. Getting off track again. We're not listening to us learn about Peloton, everybody. But everybody, like, send out your Peloton hashtag. We'll do, like, the podcast group on the Peloton.
Let's do it. I'm competitive. I love it.
Final 3 questions. Number 1, of all of your resources to pull your team and your success together, what has been the most powerful resource to you? Whether it's something you do or a tool or any piece of technology other than, of course, your cell phone, or any telephone.
So, So for us, culture is so important. And I think as we've navigated growing our business and putting a team together, having a foundation, which, you and I met through the Sothebys International Realty brand, and, there's just an instant connection that has allowed me to learn from others that are doing the things that I want to be doing. And I've been able to parlay that into different facets of my team. So that's why I'm here sharing this information, because I want somebody else to be able to take something away from this that I was able to take away from another top producer talking and explaining the dynamics of their business. That's what essentially allows us to grow. So I think a culture of collaboration is number one. And, that's what I want to continue to push and to grow and to rely on.
I love that culture of collaboration. That sounds vague, but every time I do anything that's collaborative, especially when I'm just doing it out of passion and authenticity, right, not looking for what I'm going to get, I look back and suddenly what is the positive repercussions of, or just the gifts and rewards that are kind of bestowed upon you magically. It's amazing every time. I mean, even just with this podcast. But culture of collaboration. Next question. If there is a book or an influencer that has most impacted your career, mindset, what you've given you an aha, what is that?
Ooh, oh my gosh. So I'm notorious for starting books and not finishing them.
So however, when you finished?
Yes, there's quite a few that I love. Ninja Selling by Larry Kendall is amazing.
Ah, okay.
Number one for my team. It's those principles is funny because I read that, but I was late to the party on that particular book.
I'm really late. I still haven't read it.
Okay, good.
Well, that was amazing with him. Yeah.
He's phenomenal. And, the principles that they embody are principles that I recognized I had been doing in my business naturally. And they take those characteristics and fundamentals and provide structure to them. And so it's a piece of our business that as we're, running around trying to service as many clients as possible, we often forget to structure out our day, and ultimately allows us to be more productive. So I would say pick that up. Ninja Selling, Larry Kendall, number one.
We talked about, and we're running out of time now, so we might just have to bring you back on, because we talked about habits. It probably implements. You've got things you naturally do.
Absolutely.
Make sure you harness and you put those in a way that you can get the quote compound effect of doing certain habits daily.
Right.
What is your biggest takeaway though from Ninja Selling?
I think it's organization, right? So I was so this is just like, let's summarize some of what we've discussed. My start in this business was extraordinarily reactive. It's so easy to pick up your phone, right? Like it's like you expect it. You've listed this beautiful property, this incredible, marketing asset, and you're just waiting for your phone to ring. What I learned through not only Ninja Selling, but growing my business is that I needed to pick up that phone and make those calls before anybody ever started calling me. And if I started picking up my phone for every single phone call, it better be because I had laid that groundwork, and I had structured my day around what is most opportune for my time and who I'm going to be able to serve at the highest level. So structure is key, and it's something that I'm still continually learning and trying to implement, especially as we grow a team and try to create a level of production for each team member. I think it just boils down to knowing your numbers and remaining structured.
And it makes it easier to delegate when you've got structure.
Absolutely.
Especially when you are a controlling but ADD person, like most of us realtors are.
You get caught in the
whirlwind. I mean that as a compliment to our entire industry, by the way.
Yes, of course.
Last question. If there is one thing you would hope that we all remember and never forget from this interview, if we're just going to have to forget everything else, what is that one thing we should remember?
I would say, and I've just said it, but being proactive and being willing to pick up your phone and do the work is 99% of the battle. When you look around at your market and the 6,000, 10,000, if you're in Manhattan, 32,000 agents that are all competing for the exact same customer that you are, I would say 99.9% of the time, the differential is going to be you picking up the phone and not only being proactive, but approaching it from a strategy of bringing value. So I'm not just cold calling Jere Metcalf and saying, hey, Jere, I want to be on your podcast. It's like I'm cold calling Jere Metcalf and saying, Jere, I've got to be on your podcast, and here's why. This is the value I'm going to bring to your listeners. And, which is more compelling, Jere? Who would you respond to? I'd hope the latter.
Love it. Yeah. Which goes back like authenticity and passion.
Correct.
and put some structure and some planning behind that and from proactive, and there's your recipe.
There it is.
Jonathan, this is great. Thank you so much for an awesome interview. Thank you for being on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and I hope you get to enjoy Rosemary Beach in this incredible weather we've been having.
I love it.